Alex Wallace had grown accustomed to being in control. In the realm of commerce and existence, he was never taken by surprise. As he lingered in the soft light of an elegant restaurant, relishing a fleeting moment of peace, a subtle voice disrupted the delicate balance he had so meticulously crafted. "Excuse me, sir, might you have any spare change?" He raised his gaze, anticipating the sight of an unfamiliar face. Before him stood a little girl, no older than 7, her deep brown eyes fixed on his with an unsettling intensity. At that instant, Alex was completely unaware that this seemingly innocuous question would unveil a hidden history he had never imagined, altering the course of his life indefinitely. Alex Wallace occupied his familiar spot in the softly illuminated, elegant eatery, where the low murmur of dialogue intertwined with the faint sound of cutlery and gentle piano melodies. It was one of the rare spots in the city where he could enjoy a meal in tranquility, far removed from the unyielding pressures of the corporate realm. As the leader of a prominent technology firm in the nation, his existence revolved around an unending series of meetings, negotiations, and figures. There was simply no opportunity for anything beyond that. This evening unfolded just like all the others. A perfectly cooked steak was just set before him, accompanied by a glass of deep red wine. He hardly paid it any mind, his thoughts drifting to the recent acquisition his company had wrapped up earlier that day. His universe was defined by meticulous planning and dominance, where unpredictability had no place. At least that was his belief. A subtle silhouette drew near to his table, halting just at the edge of his peripheral sight. Initially, he brushed it off, thinking it was just a server or a passerby. Yet, a gentle voice pierced the quiet hum of the restaurant. "Excuse me, sir, might you have any spare change to share?" The utterance caught me off guard, feeling entirely incongruous in this environment. Alex blinked, lifting their gaze. Before him stood a young girl, perhaps 7 years old, her long, dark brown hair cascading over her delicate shoulders. Her expansive, rich brown eyes locked onto his, revealing a blend of subtle resolve and uncertainty. She donned a pastel pink t-shirt, its slightly worn appearance lending it a touch of character, yet it remained impeccably clean. Alex's initial thought was to believe she had lost her way. This was not the sort of environment where children roamed about seeking handouts. His second instinct was one of doubt. A child pleading in a restaurant like this felt utterly incongruous. He placed his fork on the table, his eyes narrowing with intensity. "Where might your parents be?" The girl paused, her weight shifting subtly from one foot to the other. "I just need some change," she reiterated, her voice gentler this time, yet still resolute. Her manner of speaking carried an unsettling quality. She exuded a calm confidence, unlike the usual desperation he had seen in most panhandlers. She seemed oblivious to the meal laid out before him, as if her desire had little to do with the sustenance offered. It was truly remarkable. "Take a seat," Alex instructed, motioning toward the chair opposite him. The young girl paused, her delicate fingers clutching the edge of her shirt tightly. For a fleeting instant, he considered the possibility of her fleeing, yet she settled into the chair, her demeanor rigid. "May I ask what your name is?" "Lily," she replied softly. "Very well, Lily," he remarked, inclining his body a bit closer. "What brings you here? And please, don't suggest it's merely for loose coins." She averted her eyes to the table, her fingers delicately outlining an unseen design on the pristine tablecloth. She pondered, weighing the extent of her revelations to him. After a prolonged silence, she murmured, "Because I must save my mom." Alex sensed an unforeseen heaviness descend upon his heart. He had anticipated everything except for that. His curiosity intensified, yet beyond that, there was something in the manner she articulated those words that resonated with him in an inexplicable way. "Rescue her from what?" he inquired with caution. Lily swallowed hard, her voice a mere breath against the silence. "She is currently in the hospital. We lack the funds necessary to cover her treatment. I considered that perhaps by reaching out to others, I might gather what I needed." Alex observed her intently, looking for any hint of dishonesty, yet found none. She was telling the truth, he could tell. And the revelation struck him with an intensity he hadn't anticipated. She entered one of the priciest restaurants in the city, not out of hunger, not with intentions of theft or disruption, but in pursuit of the unattainable. She was determined to rescue her mother. After a considerable stretch of time, Alex Wallace found himself at a loss for words. Alex remained still, observing the young girl before him. Lily gazed at the table, her delicate fingers dancing over the linen cloth, anticipating his reply. Her words lingered in his thoughts. Her presence was not for her own sake. Her presence wasn't driven by hunger or a lack of a destination. She found herself here, driven by the need to rescue another. He had dedicated years to the boardroom, engaging in negotiations with some of the most formidable business figures in the nation. He constructed a vast realm from nothing, shaping choices that influenced the lives of countless individuals. In this moment, confronted by a 7-year-old girl who had entered a space where she felt out of place, seeking assistance from unfamiliar faces, he realized he was utterly unready. "What amount do you require?" he inquired at last, his tone steady yet resolute. Lily paused, her fingers resting motionless on the tablecloth. "I'm not sure," she confessed. "Quite a bit. Yet, if I persist in my inquiries, perhaps I can gather sufficient." Her response struck him with an intensity he hadn't anticipated. It wasn't the urgency in her tone that disturbed him, for there was none to be found. There was a calm determination in her voice, a sense that she had come to terms with the unlikelihood of her endeavor yet was resolute in pursuing it regardless. He delved into the inner pocket of his suit jacket, retrieving his wallet with a deliberate motion. He might have given her a few $100s in that moment, enough to create an impact, if only temporarily. Yet, an invisible force restrained him. Handing her cash might seem like the simplest fix, yet it wouldn't address the deeper issue weighing heavily on his thoughts. "Where is your dad?" he inquired, his eyes unwavering. Lily's expression grew steely, and for the first time, he caught a glimpse of a spark that resembled anger in her gaze. "It's only my mom and me," she replied briefly. "We can rely on ourselves." Her response revealed more than she likely understood. Her small fists clenched tightly, shoulders tensed as if preparing for an impending storm, every detail hinted at a singular truth. Whoever her father may have been, he was absent from her life, and Lily had come to understand that she could rely on no one for assistance. Alex took a deep breath, weighing his next words with precision. "Which hospital is she currently at?" Lily paused once more, yet this time, her gaze lingered on him with greater intensity. He observed her as she wrestled with the decision of whether to place her trust in him. She likely dedicated the entire evening to engaging with unfamiliar faces, yearning for mere fragments of compassion, uncertain if anyone would truly pay attention. "What makes you curious about this?" she inquired with a hint of hesitation. He reclined a bit, maintaining his gaze unwaveringly. "My desire is to offer assistance." Lily observed him intently for a prolonged moment. "What is the reason?" It was a reasonable inquiry. He felt no obligation to be concerned. He might have offered her some cash, wished her well, and continued with his evening. That's the course of action many would have taken. Yet there was something in her demeanor, in the way she held herself, and in the reality that such a young child had to shoulder a burden far beyond her years, that rendered it unthinkable to turn away. Rather than responding immediately, he delved into his wallet and retrieved a solitary coin, setting it down on the table that lay between them. It was a silver dollar, one he had held on to for years, more from routine than anything significant. "As a child, I remember someone telling me that often, the tiniest details can alter the course of everything," he remarked, observing her response. A single choice, a fleeting instant, perhaps just a solitary coin. Lily cast a fleeting look at the coin, yet refrained from making contact. Instead, she locked her gaze with his, seeking something elusive. Then, as if reaching a conclusion, she inhaled deeply and murmured, "New York General." Alex gave a slight nod. He grabbed his phone, swiftly accessing the hospital's location. The location left much to be desired, and the feedback was decidedly bleak. Overpopulated and lacking resources, it was the sort of place where individuals found themselves when all other avenues had closed off. "Let's go," he urged, rising to his feet. "I will guide you to that place." Lily's eyes grew large, and she quickly pushed herself away from the table. "No," she replied swiftly. "I am unable to accompany you." Alex took a moment, then knelt beside her, ensuring he didn't loom above her. "Why not indeed?" Lily surveyed the restaurant, her eyes darting about as though she feared an unseen observer. "What if they prevent me from seeing her again? It has already been stated that children are not permitted to stay there overnight. That is the reason I had to depart." Her words washed over him like a chilling tide. She hadn't merely arrived at this restaurant in search of money. She arrived, driven by the absence of any other place to turn. Alex maintained a calm tone, yet within him, a turmoil churned in his heart. "He assured me that it wouldn't occur. I refuse to allow them to separate you from her." Lily hesitated before making a move. She gazed at him intently, as though attempting to decipher his thoughts, weighing whether she could trust him. At last, she offered a subtle nod. "Understood." Alex rose from his seat, gesturing to the waiter as he retrieved a handful of bills and placed them on the table. As they made their way to the exit, he cast a fleeting look at Lily. She strode forward, her chin lifted, attempting to project strength, yet he noticed the fatigue in her gait, the burden of all she had been shouldering. She entered the restaurant with the hope of finding some spare change, believing that was the sole means to assist her mother. Yet, what she remained unaware of was that this evening, she had discovered something infinitely more precious. She had discovered him. In that moment, Alex Wallace found himself making a quiet vow to his own heart. Regardless of the challenges ahead, he was determined to rescue them both. Alex stood by the car door, patiently holding it open as he awaited Lily's entrance. She paused briefly, clutching the hem of her t-shirt, her rich brown eyes darting toward him with doubt. It was clear to him that she had difficulty placing her trust in others, and he understood why. She had devoted an indeterminate amount of time depending solely on her own strength. After a moment's hesitation, she took a step forward and settled into the passenger seat. Once the door clicked shut, she drew her seatbelt over her chest, securing it with meticulous attention. It was a subtle gesture, yet there was something in the manner she executed it that resonated with Alex, as if she had mastered the art of caution in every facet of her existence, meticulously ensuring she acted correctly to avoid being an inconvenience. He eased into the driver's seat and turned the key, the gentle purr of the engine shattering the stillness. The city lights streaked by as they departed from the restaurant, yet Lily stayed silent. She sat rigidly, her hands neatly clasped in her lap, gazing intently forward. Alex cast a fleeting look her way before refocusing on the road ahead. "How long has your mom been in the hospital?" he inquired, maintaining a steady tone. After a moment, Lily replied, her fingers interlacing tightly. "She endured illness for an extended period prior to that, yet we lacked the funds for medical care." Her response stirred a piercing surge within him, anger, sadness, an emotion he struggled to identify. He had devoted his existence to a realm where challenges were met with answers, where wealth could remedy nearly every issue. Yet, here was this little girl who had been made to witness her mother deteriorate, powerless to intervene. "You mentioned they won't allow you to remain there," he replied, selecting his words with caution. "Where have you been resting your head?" Lily hesitated before responding. She gazed downward, her fingers dancing over unseen designs on her jeans, her lips pressed firmly together. At times, within the confines of her home, she ultimately confessed. At times, no. Her words wrapped around him, causing his fingers to clench the steering wheel even harder. He grasped her meaning without the need for further elaboration. She found herself in solitude, resting in any place she could, as her mother remained confined to a hospital bed. He inhaled deeply, striving to mask the irritation brewing within him. "Are there any other members of your family?" "No," Lily said, shaking her head. "It's only the two of us." That was precisely what he had dreaded. If anything were to happen to her mother, she would be utterly alone. There is no safety net. There's no one to intervene. And yet, in spite of everything, she had entered that restaurant tonight with her head held high, resolute in her intention to take action. Alex found himself puzzled by the intensity of that thought's impact on him. He had devoted years to the company of individuals willing to do anything for wealth, who would deceive, betray, and scheme for even a sliver of what he possessed. And yet here was this child, who had every reason to feel resentment towards the world, opting to stand up for another rather than herself. He cast another look her way. "What is your age, Lily?" "7, she whispered, her voice barely audible. 7. Still in her youth, yet burdened by the immense pressures of life. Too young to wander the city alone, attempting to rescue someone when no one had ever come forward to rescue her. The remainder of the journey unfolded in silence. Alex sensed her occasional glances, as if she were still attempting to unravel the reasons behind his actions. He found himself at a loss for words in her presence. He understood that turning his back was simply not a possibility. As they arrived at the hospital, Lily let out a breath, her fingers tightly clutching the seatbelt strap. The structure appeared even more dilapidated from this proximity. The fluorescent lights buzzed intermittently above the entrance, while the automatic doors creaked softly as they parted to welcome visitors. Alex exited the vehicle, pausing for Lily to follow suit. With a moment of uncertainty, she released her seatbelt and stepped out. As they approached the entrance, she unexpectedly reached out and grasped the hem of his sleeve, if only for a fleeting moment. It happened in an instant, leaving him little room to respond before she released her grip, yet it was sufficient. Sufficient for him to grasp that, in spite of all, she remained fearful. He remained silent on the matter. He continued to walk alongside her, entering a realm unfamiliar to him, a realm where wealth could not diminish the harsh truths faced by individuals like Lily and her mother. For the first time in his life, he realized that not even the wealth of the world could persuade him to turn his back on this. Upon entering the hospital, Alex was immediately struck by the pungent aroma of antiseptic mingling with the stale air that enveloped him. The overhead fluorescent lights emitted a soft buzz, illuminating the tired linoleum floors with a harsh, clinical brightness. This place stood in stark contrast to the private hospitals he had encountered before, which were immaculate, nearly opulent, where wealth ensured both comfort and privacy. In this place, a sense of weariness permeated the air, evident in the weary expressions of the nurses at the front desk and the packed waiting area teeming with individuals seeking refuge. Lily strolled alongside him, her petite figure gliding silently as she navigated the intricate labyrinth of corridors. She glided with a sense of ease, her movements deliberate, as though she had traversed this path countless times prior. The idea of that sent another jolt of discomfort coursing through him. No child should ever face the challenges of a hospital environment by themselves. A modest chamber awaited them at the corridor's distant end. The door stood ajar, and within, the steady pulse of a heart monitor broke the stillness. Lily lingered at the threshold, her fingers clutching the hem of her pink t-shirt. For the first time since she had approached him at the restaurant, a flicker of doubt crossed her face. Alex knelt beside her, bringing himself down to her eye level. "Are you all right?" he inquired softly. She acknowledged with a nod, yet remained still. He observed the emotions dancing on her face, relief at their arrival, fear of the unknown within, and a deeper feeling she struggled to contain. Lily confessed softly, "She has no idea I'm gone. I wish to spare her any concern." Alex let out a slow breath, the gravity of those words pressing down on him. This young girl bore an immense weight, navigating through difficult decisions without any direction. He wished to convey to her that she no longer needed to face this challenge by herself, yet he doubted she would trust his words at this moment. Lily inhaled deeply, then crossed the threshold in silence. Alex trailed behind her, his eyes quickly settling on the delicate figure resting in the hospital bed. She appeared youthful, far too youthful to be in this state. Her dark brown hair lay flat against the pillow, her complexion a ghostly pale, and a profound weariness etched across her features, even in slumber. Amidst the 4 lines and the machines encircling her, she possessed a serene beauty, one that endured even in the face of adversity. Lily moved toward the bed with caution, ascending onto the chair next to it. She extended her hand and softly brushed against her mother's palm. "Mother," she whispered gently. The woman stirred, her eyelids gently fluttering open. After a brief pause to gather her thoughts, a faint smile appeared on her lips upon catching sight of Lily. "Hey, darling," she whispered, her voice raspy. "You've returned." Lily gave a swift nod. I desired to be present in this moment. Alex lingered at the threshold, sensing his alienation in a scene that felt foreign to him. However, the woman's gaze shifted, and the moment she looked at him, her expression transformed. Her smile dimmed, her breath hitching in her throat. Alex sensed his body tighten as a spark of recognition ignited in her weary gaze. He was familiar with her. Not solely from this instant, nor merely as Lily's mother. "Sophie," he murmured, his voice almost a breath. Her lips parted slightly, and for a moment, she seemed on the verge of silence. With a deep breath, she released it slowly and murmured, "Alex." Lily glanced back and forth, a look of bewilderment on her face. "You're familiar with one another." Neither of them responded immediately. Alex stepped forward cautiously, his thoughts swirling as he tried to comprehend the unfolding events. Sophie. The lady he had previously encountered. The woman who had disappeared from his existence, leaving no evidence behind. After all these years, she found herself in a hospital bed, delicate and weary, accompanied by a daughter who had been compelled to seek assistance from strangers. His offspring. The epiphany struck him with the force of a crashing wave, leaving him breathless. Lily belonged to him. Sophie averted her gaze, as though the weight of his eyes was too much to bear. "I never imagined our paths would cross again," she whispered. Alex took a deep breath, struggling to maintain his composure. "I didn't either." He had an overwhelming urge to inquire, a multitude of questions gnawing at the edges of his thoughts. What caused her to depart? Why did she keep it from him? How had she found herself in this situation, battling through the challenges without a single soul to support her? Yet at this moment, nothing held more significance than the small girl beside her, observing them with her large, curious eyes. Sophie's fingers gently wrapped around Lily's hand. "You didn't tell me where you went," she said gently to her daughter. Lily cast her gaze downward, a shadow of guilt passing over her features. She confessed that she was attempting to assist. "I set out on a quest for financial gain." Sophie's eyes brimmed with a deep, unsettling emotion. "Lily, that's not something you can do. It's not wise to venture out on your own." Lily insisted, "So I had no choice. You required my presence to do so." Her voice trembled at the conclusion, and for the first time since Alex had encountered her, she appeared like a young girl, frightened, inundated, and yearning for reassurance that she had made the right choice. Sophie's eyes returned to Alex, probing his expression, as though she were trying to unravel the mystery of his presence, questioning why he had chosen to follow Lily rather than simply turning away. "Did you bring her along?" she inquired. Alex gave a slight nod. "She approached me," he stated plainly. "I refused to allow her to face this by herself." A hint of softness flickered in Sophie's expression, yet traces of weariness lingered still. She appeared to have more to express, yet fatigue and weakness held her back. Alex cast her eyes over the machines nearby, taking in the 4 attached to her arm and the chart positioned at the foot of her bed. "What seems to be the issue?" he inquired, his tone softer now. Sophie paused, uncertainty flickering in her mind. The situation is intricate. Please clarify it for me. She let out a breath, clearly hesitant, but at last, she murmured, heart failure. It has been suggested that I require surgery. However, we lack the funds for that. Alex experienced a sudden lurch in his stomach. He had dedicated his life to signing contracts valued in the millions, pouring resources into ventures that exceeded the costs of entire hospitals. There she lay, the woman he had once cherished, the mother of his child, confined to a hospital bed due to her inability to access the care she required. And she hadn't even sought his assistance. I can fix that, he said, his voice unwavering. I will address all aspects. Sophie's eyes grew a fraction larger, revealing her surprise at the unexpected turn of events. Alex. I'm not asking, he cut in, his voice resolute. This surgery is essential for you. You will receive it soon. A prolonged stillness lingered in the air between them. Lily gazed upward at her mother. Please, Mom, she whispered. Allow him to assist. Sophie glanced back and forth, her lips slightly parted as if she was on the verge of making a point. Yet, in that moment, a shift occurred in her expression. She gave a slight nod. Alex breathed out, sensing the tightness in his chest finally ease. He felt uncertain about the destination of this road, the revelations it might bring, or how they would even start to unravel the years of silence that had grown between them. However, one thing remained clear. This time, he was staying put. Alex occupied the hospital chair next to Sophie's bed, observing her as she slipped in and out of slumber. The burden of recent events loomed over him, saturating the space with a palpable unease. Lily nestled in the chair beside her mother, her tiny hand gently resting on Sophie's arm, as though she feared the moment she would have to release it. He remained unable to fully comprehend the truth of the situation. Sophie had been here, in this hospital, fighting her battles, while he had spent countless years under the impression that she had merely decided to leave him behind. Lily, his daughter, roamed the streets, pleading with strangers for coins, while he indulged in a life of luxury, completely unaware of her existence. The idea sent a knot of unease through him. A soft knock on the door shattered the stillness, prompting Alex to glance over as a nurse entered, clipboard in hand. She appeared weary, her scrub a bit crumpled, yet her demeanor softened upon spotting Lily next to her mother. The nurse spoke softly, her gaze darting to Sophie's peaceful figure, indicating that she was stable for the moment. However, without surgical intervention, her condition is bound to deteriorate further. I notice the payment authorization has been processed. Are you genuinely taking care of the expense? Alex nodded with unwavering certainty. Indeed. Anything she requires. The nurse observed him intently, as if seeking to grasp the reason behind a man clad in a costly suit suddenly stepping up for a patient in a bustling hospital. Yet, she accepted it without question. Instead, she acknowledged with a nod and quickly jotted down a note on her clipboard. She assured that everything would be handled swiftly. The quicker we can move her to surgery, the more advantageous it will be. Thank you, Alex said, his voice softer than usual. The nurse offered him a gentle, empathetic smile before quietly exiting the room, leaving him in solitude with Lily and the rhythmic sound of Sophie's calm breathing. For an extended silence, neither he nor Lily uttered a word. She nestled in the chair, her legs drawn up to her chest, her brown eyes intently focused on her mother's face. In that instant, she appeared diminutive, reminiscent of a child who had worn the mask of strength for far too long. Alex leaned in, propping his elbows on his knees. Lily, he spoke softly. She faced him, her look cautious, as though preparing for an impending moment. I wasn't aware of your existence, he confessed, his tone gruffer than he had meant it to be. Had I possessed that, the outcome would have been altered. Lily fixed her gaze on him for an extended pause, then shifted her attention to her hands. She spoke softly, revealing that Mom never mentioned you. Until today, your name was a mystery to me. The words pierced deeper than anticipated, yet Alex compelled himself to maintain his composure. Has she ever shared the reason with you? Lily gave a slight shake of her head. It seemed she felt a sense of sadness regarding the situation. I would often inquire about my father, yet she consistently diverted the conversation. Alex let out a deep breath, his hand moving to his face in a weary gesture. He was filled with countless inquiries, yet Lily was not the one equipped to provide the answers. Sophie held the answers to the questions that haunted him, the reason for her disappearance, the secret of their daughter, and the choice to endure her struggles in solitude rather than seeking his support. As he gazed at Lily in that moment, he understood that all those questions faded into insignificance compared to the undeniable truth. She needed him now, and he was determined not to let her down. May I pose a question to you? He inquired after a brief pause. Lily gave a reluctant nod. For how long have you been engaged in this activity? Requesting financial assistance. She squirmed in her seat, a sense of unease washing over her. She confessed it had been a short while. Mother was unaware. I wish to spare her any concern. Alex's jaw clenched. He had dedicated his life to boardrooms, orchestrating negotiations worth billions, yet now stood his own daughter, compelled to plead for mere scraps, abandoned by those who should have been there for her. You don't need to do that anymore, he said, his tone steady yet kind. I have arrived. Financial concerns will become a thing of the past. Lily cast her gaze upon him once more, her face a mask of mystery. Will you be staying? The inquiry took him by surprise. He perceived the deeper significance, the trepidation, the ambiguity. She had spent her entire existence without him, and now, unexpectedly, he was present, offering assurances. She yearned to place her faith in him, yet doubt lingered in her mind, casting shadows over the possibility that he might vanish just as abruptly as he had come into her life. Alex leaned in a bit, locking eyes with her directly. Indeed, he replied without a moment's pause. I'm here to stay. Lily remained silent for a moment. After a lengthy silence, she offered a slight nod, as though she were permitting herself to trust him, if only a fraction. That sufficed for the moment. Alex reclined in his chair, casting another look at Sophie. She appeared so delicate in that moment, a mere echo of the vibrant woman he had once cherished. He was uncertain about how they would unravel the pain and silence that had settled between them, yet one thing was clear, he would not allow her to face this struggle by herself. He was determined that Lily would never believe she had to face the world alone. For the first time in his life, Alex Wallace found himself captivated by something that transcended business deals and corporate power. He was blessed with a daughter. He was determined to do anything necessary to atone for the years that had slipped away. Alex spent the night wide awake. He remained in the hospital room, keeping a watchful eye on Sophie and Lily, allowing the gravity of the situation to envelop him. Occasionally, a nurse would enter to monitor Sophie's vitals, tweaking the foredrip or jotting down observations on the chart at the foot of her bed. With every passing moment, Alex's eyes darted to the clock, mentally tallying the hours remaining until the surgery. The burden seemed infinite, and for the first time in ages, he sensed a profound lack of control. Lily had finally drifted off in the chair next to her mother, curled up with her knees drawn under her chin. She had battled against it, claiming she wasn't weary, yet fatigue had triumphed. In slumber, she appeared even more youthful, her expression unburdened by the concerns that had accompanied her when she first came to him. The idea caused a constriction in his chest. It is unjust for any child to carry such a burden, particularly in solitude. As the first light of dawn filtered through the small hospital window, Alex finally rose and stretched, his body protesting from the long hours spent in the rigid chair. He emerged into the hallway, retrieving his phone from his pocket. He had overlooked numerous emails and disregarded missed calls from his assistant, his team, and business partners. At last, everything felt inconsequential. He picked up the phone and dialed a number, pressing it to his ear. It rang twice before a sleepy voice finally responded. Is that you, Alex? Could you tell me the time, please? Mike, I need you to do something for me, Alex said, brushing aside the question. Mike Henderson stood out as one of the finest private investigators Alex had ever collaborated with. He had exposed everything from corporate fraud to high-profile scandals, but this was deeply personal. Mike let out a heavy sigh from the other end. This isn't a matter of commerce, is it? No, Alex confessed. It's about a person from my past. A person I should have discovered much earlier. Mike paused, a silence enveloping him before his tone transformed. What is it that you require? Alex requested all available information on Sophie Miller. Health documentation, monetary statements, her whereabouts over the past 7 years. I must understand why she never approached me. Why didn't she ever mention Lily to me? Another silence lingered before Mike finally broke it once more. Alex, are you certain you wish to pursue this path? At times, reality doesn't align with our desires. Alex let out a breath, his hand brushing over his face. The truth holds no significance for me. I simply require some clarity. Very well, Mike responded. I will begin my exploration. Alex ended the call and pressed his back against the wall, thoughts swirling in his head. For years, he held on to the belief that Sophie had walked away by her own choice, that she had deliberately chosen to vanish from his existence. Yet now, witnessing her in this state, observing the lengths Lily had to go to in order to endure, he found his certainty wavering. A gentle voice drew him out of his reverie. You're still present. He glanced over to find Sophie observing him from the bed, her voice soft yet unwavering. She gazed at him with weary, probing eyes, as if attempting to discern whether he was truly there or merely a fading illusion. Absolutely, I'm right here, Alex remarked, re-entering the room. Sophie's eyes darted to Lily, who remained peacefully asleep in the chair next to her. A blend of feelings flickered across her expression, affection, sorrow, remorse. She shared all the details with you, didn't she? Alex drew the chair nearer to the bed and settled into it, his gaze fixed intently on hers. Not everything, he remarked. It's clear to me now that my arrival was long overdue. Sophie averted her gaze, her fingers clutching the delicate hospital blanket tightly. She confessed that this was not how she envisioned it. I never intended for you to discover it like this. Alex leaned in, his voice low yet resolute. So, how were you expecting me to discover this, Sophie? Was it ever meant to be? She momentarily shut her eyes, then turned her gaze back to him. I believed I was making the right choice, she murmured, her voice scarcely audible. Upon discovering I was expecting, a wave of fear washed over me. You were crafting your enterprise, establishing your reputation. I worried that sharing this with you would make you feel cornered, as if you had to decide between your future and our relationship. Alex tightened his jaw, battling to maintain control over his feelings. You don't have the right to make that choice for me, he said, his tone more cutting than he meant it to be. You don't have the authority to determine that I wouldn't have wanted to be present. Sophie recoiled just a bit, yet chose not to contest. I understand, she murmured. I understand that now. However, in those days. In my youth, I was naive, believing I was safeguarding you. And then, when challenges arose, when I felt the urge to connect, I persuaded myself that the moment had passed. That you had progressed forward. Alex let out a deep breath, massaging his temples. Sophie, I would have gone to great lengths. I would have looked after you both. I know, she repeated, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. However, by the moment I came to that understanding, I was at a loss for how to remedy the situation. Silence lingered between them, heavy with unexpressed thoughts and the weight of years gone by. At last, Alex turned his gaze toward her, his voice unwavering. The moment is still ripe for action. Sophie blinked, her gaze lifting to meet his. Excuse me. "I'm here," he stated plainly. "And I'm here to stay. For you, for Lily. I won't allow you to face this by yourself any longer." Sophie exhaled unsteadily, as though the burden she had borne for years had abruptly grown unbearable. She confessed that she wasn't sure how to allow you to assist her. Alex extended his hand towards hers, with a touch that was both gentle and resolute. "Allow me to demonstrate." After years of distance, Sophie finally allowed him to stay close. She remained silent, refraining from suggesting that he was not obligated to proceed with this. She nodded softly, her fingers gripping his with newfound strength, as if for the first time, she was permitting herself to consider that perhaps, just perhaps, they could face this struggle together. Alex remained by Sophie and Lily's side while the hospital staff got ready for the surgery. The morning unfolded in a whirlwind of medical professionals entering and exiting, detailing procedures, monitoring vitals, and confirming that all was in order. Sophie absorbed the conversation, offering nods at appropriate moments, yet Alex could sense her fatigue. After enduring a lengthy battle in solitude, persevering without a shoulder to rely on, she found herself, quite unexpectedly, surrounded by companionship. He pondered whether that frightened her more than the procedure itself. Lily remained steadfastly by her mother's side. She grasped Sophie's hand firmly, her tiny fingers wrapped around her mother's wrist, as if the mere act of releasing it would cause everything to unravel. Occasionally, she would steal a look at Alex, as if seeking confirmation that he remained present, that he wasn't merely another fleeting figure destined to vanish. As the moment approached, a nurse carefully pushed Sophie's bed toward the surgery wing. Lily clung to her mother's hand until the final instant, when the doors closed with a soft thud, enveloping them in a profound silence. The young girl remained motionless in the corridor, her gaze fixed on the doors, as though she could summon them to swing open once more. Alex knelt beside her, offering a reassuring touch on her shoulder. "She will be all right," he said softly. Lily gulped, her bottom lip quivering slightly. "What if she isn't?" Alex acted without a moment's pause. "Then we shall battle for her," he declared. "In unity." Lily glanced at him, her eyes probing his expression for a hint of understanding. Whatever she discovered in that moment seemed to suffice, for after a pause, she nodded and inhaled deeply, using the back of her hand to dry her tears. They lingered in the waiting area, time elongating as the minutes morphed into hours. Alex had navigated countless high-stakes environments, seated in boardrooms, brokering billion-dollar agreements, yet this experience felt entirely unique. For the first time in ages, he genuinely sensed that something significant was on the line. Eventually, Lily nestled into her chair, leaning her head against his arm. She remained too protective to seek solace directly, yet Alex perceived her need. He allowed her to remain in that position, his arm gently resting around her petite shoulders. A well-known voice drew him back from his musings. "Alex." He glanced upward to find Mike Henderson a short distance away, casually attired in jeans and a jacket. He must have arrived directly from his most recent assignment, and the expression on his face conveyed to Alex that he had uncovered something significant. With great care, Alex adjusted his position, ensuring that Lily remained undisturbed, before rising and signaling for Mike to join him a short distance away. "Share your discoveries with me." Mike cast a quick look at Lily before speaking in a hushed tone. "Sophie has endured unimaginable struggles," he remarked. "Once she departed, she faced difficulties. She drifted from one job to another, struggling to earn just enough to keep her head above water. Then, around 3 years back, she fell ill. She likely sensed that something was amiss, yet lacking insurance, she postponed seeing a doctor until it was too late." Alex tightened his jaw. He had believed that Sophie had moved on and created a life apart from him, yet the reality was far more painful. She hadn't merely departed, she had been battling for her very existence. What held her back from seeking assistance? Alex murmured, speaking more to his own thoughts than to Mike. Mike let out a breath. Confidence. Apprehension. Perhaps she believed you wouldn't be interested in hearing from her after all this time. Perhaps she believed she could manage it by herself. Alex sighed, tousling his hair in frustration. She ought not to have been in that position. Mike observed him intently for a brief moment. The past is unchangeable, Alex. Yet, you have the opportunity to be present at this moment. Alex nodded, his heart heavy with feelings he wasn't prepared to explore. I shall be. Mike offered a gentle pat on the shoulder before retreating a step. Feel free to reach out if there's anything more you require. As Mike strolled off, Alex inhaled deeply and settled back into his chair next to Lily. She stirred a bit, yet remained in slumber. He gazed down at her, sensing a change stir within him. He devoted his entire existence to the pursuit of success, constructing a vast empire, persuading himself that dominance and authority were the only things of significance. Yet, nothing had ever experienced this way before. None of it had ever given him a sense of belonging. His presence extended beyond just Sophie's surgery. He was not present merely out of guilt or obligation. He was present because this was his kin. For the first time, he understood precisely what he was battling for. Time slipped away in a heavy stillness. With each swing of the surgical wing doors, Alex's gaze darted upward, eagerly seeking any hint of news. Lily perched beside him, her silence betraying a palpable restlessness, her delicate fingers clutching the fabric of her sweater tightly. She had ceased inquiring about the duration left, as though she had come to understand that anticipation rarely offered straightforward responses. Alex had never experienced such profound helplessness before. He was a doer, a person who tackled challenges, repaired issues, and shaped results. Yet, in this frigid waiting room, he found himself utterly powerless. He had the power to approve any medical expense, to secure the finest physicians globally, yet none of that altered the reality that Sophie was undergoing surgery, and he was powerless to assist her in this moment. Lily released a soft sigh and nestled against his arm once more. She had hardly uttered a word in the last hour, yet her mere presence served as a poignant reminder of the stakes involved. He was not merely biding his time for Sophie's healing. He lingered in anticipation of the moment when he could finally offer Lily the stability she had always lacked. At last, the doors swung open, revealing a doctor clad in surgical scrubs who emerged from within. At that moment, Alex and Lily both sat up simultaneously, their breaths momentarily halted. The physician drew near, his demeanor composed yet earnest. He stated that the surgery went well. Sophie is doing well. She requires some time to heal, yet she has persevered. Lily gasped softly, and before Alex had a chance to respond, she enveloped him in her embrace. It marked the inaugural moment she extended her hand toward him, the initial instance she permitted herself to lower her defenses, if only for a fleeting instant. Alex enveloped her in his embrace, securing her close. She's fine, he whispered. She will be all right. Lily inhaled deeply against his shirt, her head bobbing in agreement. Fear gripped her as she whispered. I understand, Alex replied gently. Same here. The physician allowed them a brief pause before proceeding. She will be transferred to a recovery room shortly. She may be a bit dazed for some time, but you can catch a glimpse of her. Lily stepped back, dabbing at her tears. Are we ready to leave now? Alex gazed at the doctor, who gave a confirming nod. She'll be making her appearance shortly. Upon their eventual entry into the room, Sophie appeared wan and weary, yet she was alert. Her eyes fluttered open at the sound of their entrance, and the first thing that met her gaze was Lily hurrying to her side. Mom, Lily whispered, clutching her hand tightly. Sophie's lips formed a faint smile. Hello there. Her voice carried a raspy quality, yet it was imbued with warmth, and her weary eyes reflected a sense of relief. Alex lingered at the foot of the bed, observing the heartfelt reunion between mother and daughter. The moment was profoundly humbling, a testament to the enduring love shared between them, a love that had weathered every storm. Sophie's eyes finally met his, and for an extended moment, they simply stared at one another. "You truly remained," she whispered. Alex moved in, his tone steady yet soft. "I made it clear that I wasn't going anywhere." Sophie exhaled unsteadily, giving a small nod. "Thanks a lot." It was more than mere appreciation for the operation or the financial support. It was for being present, for being involved in this, for not fleeing when the truth had ultimately revealed itself. Lily glanced at him, her mother's hand still clasped in hers. "We're going to be all right now, aren't we?" Alex lowered himself next to her, locking eyes with her. "Indeed," he remarked. "We exist." His voice carried a certainty, devoid of any hesitation, and his mind was free of doubt. He devoted his entire existence to pursuing the notion of achievement, convinced that influence and riches would complete him. Yet, nothing had ever resonated as deeply as this instant, being present here, aware that he possessed something genuine to strive for. He was not merely rectifying an error from earlier times. He was crafting a vision for what lay ahead. To Sophie. To Lily. For their loved ones.